payment, but it's just when we have an invoice for the lights.
Just before we start the meeting, I would like everyone to please get as close to the microphone as I am. And the reason is I can't hear anybody unless you do. So, yeah, thank you very much. Okay, Steve is here. As follow meeting order 6:10. Kate, would you please call the roll?
So with it being a work section, you actually don't need to do that. We're welcome to just kick it off to DCI to get us started.
I don't think you heard that.
What did you say? Okay. All right. Well, we are back. I am Kat Carell. We have Kimberly from DCI, Downtown Colorado Inc. I have Kylie Brown, also from Downtown Colorado Inc., and Kimberly McKee, who is our guest from Downtown Longmont, Downtown Development Authority. And our purpose here tonight, oh, thank you, is Miranda, do you have our slides?
I can get them.
Oh, awesome.
The slides at the end of this, that are at the end of this packet. I don't recall you sending me, I didn't recall you sending me a separate slide deck.
Oh,
But if you want to email me right now a
I
slide
got it.
deck, I can happily pull it up.
So sorry. We've been moving fast. Oh. No, the slides that are in here are from our past reports. I apologize, I didn't send that over. We finished it and had them all done early. But anyway, so tonight is our fourth visit, and we have had the three meetings here. The first, if you recall, was with the Downtown Development Authority Board and staff. The second one, we went out and interviewed businesses and learned a little bit more about property owners and projects in the town. And then our third one was combined with the DDA board and the town board. And we have put together these recommendations based on those meetings. This is actually an extra meeting that wasn't in our original scope of work, but we thought it'd be good to come share these recommendations and talk them through if you had any questions. And then we can finalize the report with any edits that we have after tonight. And so as we're pulling up the slides, I'll just cover some of the things that are in the first few of those, which are what were the goals and desired outcomes of the overall work here, making sure that there is an understanding of DDAs and TIF, understanding the role of the board, exploring ideas around partnership, considering how decisions are made, and having fun. That one we add on because it's always important, and I think we do a better job when we are having fun. And so those were our overall goals for coming. The next thing that will be covered in the slides, and we'll skip over it when it starts, is what are your current priorities as outlined in your plan of development. And there's 4: beautification, circulation, events and programming, and business services. And as we've talked, these priorities do ring true with the goals that you all have discussed. And so most of our recommendations are really about the how, right? Like you've got the foundation, all of these things in place, and our recommendations are looking at how you're getting things done and how you can more effectively get them done. One of the things outlined, and I know you did all receive the report in advance, But one of the things that we wanted to talk through is the obstacles and lessons learned. And I'm going to ask Kimberly if you can chime in as well. But there seems to be a lot of, and I'm not sure, we call this consensus seeking, but there seemed to be a lot of discussion about different topics, how to review topics, back and forth about topics that may not be at a decision point. And so one of the big lessons learned that we found is that it's going to delay your progress if you're talking about things that really aren't ready for a decision, or maybe they're not even ready for the DDA to look at them. And so really thinking about how you focus your very precious time as a board, as staff, as an organization, focusing your time and money on things that you can get results and that are feasible and meaningful for you to work on. You want to add anything? Okay. The other thing is navigating bottlenecks with public processes. And it sounded like a lot of the lessons learned and the obstacles that you all may be facing are thinking about intergovernmental relationships, how you relate to the town, how you relate to other entities, and really thinking about clarifying how those relationships work, the processes, and streamlining those things so that everybody understands how they work and that they aren't delays in getting things done. Our third is really focusing on quality research and community engagement. And this one for all of our team was a big lessons learned and a big eye opener. But having discussions about things where you just need more research, you do not have enough data, is essentially spending your time on something that can't go anywhere. So really focusing and thinking about the DD role in doing the research and helping to find those answers. And maybe that research is done through a test project. Maybe it's done through a study. Maybe it's done through talking with businesses, right? So there's different ways that you can do that, but really looking at how you can get the information that you need before you have the conversations about how to solve a problem. Our fourth one was communicating plans and processes. And we were also pretty surprised by the lack of awareness in the community that there is a DDA, what a DDA does, how to work with the DDA. All of this got sort of these blank responses. And I think that it sort of goes to, if you're talking about things and spending a lot of time on things that you're not able to implement, you're not having a whole lot of on the ground wins that help people recognize who you are. And so communicating your plan, communicating your wins, communicating who you are, communicating is something that's missing. And it also, I will say, lends itself to a perception that everything is political. People assume every meeting is political. Every meeting is a debate. Every meeting is about some sort of contentious project. If you have easy wins, you can get past contention, right? You can get to things where everybody is supportive and people are like, hey, the DDA did that. Kate worked on that. Ron is the board chair, right? And you start to develop this different sense. And so a lot of our recommendations are really, how do you get to that? Right? Because you don't want to be viewed as a political organization that nobody wants to go to the meetings because it's just going to be the same debate about something that never changes, right? And then the last one, and I think we after talking tonight, we may even have some new recommendations that aren't yet in our slides, but think about reducing turnover. And what struck us is that you know, with this type of scenario where you're talking about things that may not be ready to have a decision made, and they might not even, like, it might not even be time for them to be on the agenda. It does create a lot of room for burnout. It can create burnout for your staff. It can create burnout for your board. It leaves a lot of areas for people just to argue with one another, right? Whereas if you can focus on some of those low-hanging fruit, those easier wins, I think that you can start to build momentum and a more positive attitude and an understanding of what you can do instead of getting locked in this sort of circular dialogue about things that are just not ready to be solved, especially by the DDA, right? And so that will help you to reduce turnover. The other thing is we're going to have a lot of recommendations on reducing turnover in terms of building your administrative capacity, organizational capacity, and really thinking about how to get this to be a high functioning organization. Because when you have that, I think that you do see less turnover. Any questions about those? Anything you'd like to? Okay, awesome. Now, we have our slides, which look so pretty. If we can kind of cruise through some of them. That's our purpose. So we're going to review those lessons learned, talk about how to align with the town, and then go over the recommendations. This one you know, but what we're doing is we're striving for excellence. And so a lot of times that starts with baby steps. And the low-hanging fruit is how you build that foundation for excellence. Next slide. This one I already covered. Got it. Check. Okay. And then we did that. Okay, cool. So we're going to jump right into our recommendations. And the way they're broken down in the slides is a little bit more conversational than how they're broken down in the report. But I think that they're basically all covered in the plan. And so really thinking about how you align with town and partners gets at some of those lessons learned around streamlining processes. With the town doing their comprehensive plan and having a downtown plan, really thinking of your plan of development. Maybe you want to update your plan of development. You definitely want to create a work plan. And your work plan should have maybe 2 to 3 things that you're going to get done. And these should be easy wins, things that you want to get done. We've talked a little bit about what these might be. And I would say, in our opinion, focusing on building the organizational capacity. I have to tell you, I'm a little low on brain power this week, so I may ask Kimberly if you can help me because I'm going to forget some stuff. But so building your organizational capacity, connecting with your essential businesses, your property owners, and making sure that that communication and their awareness of who you are and why you're here is solid. And there's a number of different layers for that. And then the third, what was our third thing? Yeah, strengthening the partnerships, but I think really reporting, part of that communication is sharing what you have done, why you're doing it, and what are the opportunities going forward.
Yeah, I was just going to say for this one, you really have a huge opportunity with all that's happening in your community right now with the update of your comprehensive plan and then a downtown plan. This is the time that you really have an opportunity with new information to establish those relationships with your business owners, to go in, to talk them through what the findings were, to make sure that, they understand what's happening. And out of all the recommendations you'll get, which ones are they prioritizing? I mean, I think every time that there's something, our council always wants to know from us, well, how did the business about this? How do these folks feel about these changes or whatever? So I think there's a huge opportunity to earn that trust and to start that two-way conversation, along with a work plan that has some tangible outcomes that as you're building those relationships, you can go back and say, yeah, here's what we've done. Help us decide what our next steps will be. So I do think a really unique position right now to be able to accomplish a lot of this stuff that Kat's laying out.
And then the third point about considering the projects to support partners. Yes, as Kimberly said, look through that comp plan, look through that downtown plan, think about what are the projects there. But there's also the idea of, there was talk about sanitation district. There's other things that you all have brought up, and there are different groups in the community working on those things. So really thinking about what it looks like and connecting the dots to those other groups that are working on it and saying, we may be working on this too, let us know what direction this is going. Now, given that you are, with half a staff person and, sort of working, you have to really think about how to leverage things. So as we talked about in that first meeting, thinking about how you can use your partners, maybe they're the ones who implement it, maybe you support them, but it all goes back to that communication first. Okay. All right, now the next series of recommendations are things for the board. And what we have is really a thought about the vision. There are things that everybody can support with the board and with the organization, and looking at what you have in that downtown plan, in the comprehensive plan, thinking about kind of develop, really understanding what your vision is and how you can tighten up, how that you stay focused on that vision and the things that are feasible to do. The agenda setting process, we heard a couple different times that there are different committees in town that have sort of a form that they use to rate how ready something is to be discussed. But really thinking about having the agenda setting potentially be done by staff and then reviewed by the board chair, but limiting those items that are on the agenda, because we did hear a lot that the board has a lot on its plate. You get really large packets of information. Maybe people can't always read it all before the meeting, and it might be more content than you're able to discuss. Now, certainly there's topics that you want to be involved in the town that aren't ready for a decision by the DDA, and they could be discussed at other places. You can be involved with them all you want. But as a DDA, really focusing on a tight number of things that you can make an impact on, and then sharing what your vision is, what your work plan is, how you're going to get it done, how partners can support you, and what you accomplish. And really making sure that that communication side comes across strong so that people don't think, oh, it's just another meeting where people are going to talk about stuff that they don't agree on. Anything to add? Okay. So also for the board, thinking about engaging with partners. And I think we've really touched on that already, but maybe even, making a list of the different partners and different board members could reach out, or maybe different board members are already in touch with different groups and having reports back, like this is what that group is working on, and maybe that's sort of how you start to think about the projects that you would support that other people are working on that are in line with your work plan. And that would also help you to align plans and broaden the awareness. But thinking about how you can do that, given the limited time and capacity of the organization, maybe that's one way that board members can all contribute, everybody, one group that they reach out to. Something along those lines. And then we get into staff. And part of what we want to highlight in terms of the ideas for staff is that the board, I'm going to add a bullet to the board, and I already started adding it in the report, but I think that the board needs to invest in the organization and in the staff. And it would benefit you greatly to have a full-time position and or having some contracts that could take some administrative pieces or communication pieces off the plate of the executive director. So your primary director of the organization is going to have a lot of things to do, even just with managing the board and managing contracts and managing, working with the community. So also doing a website, also doing a newsletter, thinking about all those different pieces is a lot. And so really looking at how you invest in the organization, I think that you would be a lot more effective if you did put more money and more hours into the staffing of the organization, whether that be by staff or contract. Now, that said, we have a lot of recommendations for the things that staff would do. And this sort of means think about them being full-time, because there's a lot that you want to do if you really want to build your capacity and what this organization can do. So one of your top goals of the 4 priorities that you have is business services. And every single time we've talked with folks, this came up as a top priority, one of the main things that the DDA can do right now. But the businesses aren't necessarily aware there is a DDA or what a DDA does. So our recommendations are, be a streetwalker. I think getting out and talking to the businesses in their business, on the street, in their place is important. Having coffee and conversation where this is you as, maybe you find a place and you just sit in the coffee shop and you work there one day a week or one morning and you tell everybody, come on by, I'm there. And you're just available. It's like office hours, but it's also a way to support a local business. Attend other meetings. So, there's a chamber, attend the chamber meetings. There's other meetings that are happening in the community that involve businesses. Go to those meetings. Having an e-newsletter, the idea of block captains, I think Kimberly shared, where there is a designated person, be one of the businesses, or maybe a board member could be a block captain, and you go and you talk to the people on that block. But finding different ways to create a stronger network between the DDA and the businesses so that there is a real relationship there, and that as people, if a business is having trouble, you know about it. If a business has an idea, you know about it. If, there's something to be done, you're aware of it. Quarterly business meetings, and maybe these start small. Maybe they start as the coffee and conversation, because right now, I don't know if the businesses would come to a meeting, but thinking about how to build to that. A familiarity tour, having the businesses get to visit the other businesses, that they can see what businesses have for sale. They can get to know each other, but there's a lot of relationship building that seems to be lacking in the community. And it seems like a lot of the, maybe the don't live in town, maybe the employees don't live in town, but they're not necessarily connecting on a community level. And so I think that creates a lot of room for problems.
I'll just add one thing. Be a streetwalker was my favorite recommendation, by the way. It made me laugh. But this is where these conversations are where that low-hanging fruit will become super evident to all of you, and where you can pick a project that will be a win. It's never going to be a win in everyone's eyes, right? But it's going to be a win in lots of people's eyes, and they're going to be feeling very cool and then willing to continue. So those are the kind of things that I think are super important, and how you break down conversations is important as well. Right now we have a meeting, we have a very long linear downtown with each block. And it's interesting because those conversations will go very differently than an all business owner meeting or a retail meeting. And so, having the conversations in several different groups is super important, but it takes capacity to do that. It takes a lot of time to do that. But while you're doing that, you can do others as well, like gathering an information sheet on every business. And then you could probably pop up a website with a business directory. That's a real easy way to get a small win to your community. I know at one point you all talked about there's a very robust maybe social media of the Ned heads or that you guys were talking about, right? And we have one of those, and sometimes it's great, and sometimes it is less great. I don't know, I don't follow yours, but you know, you're able to kind of figure out the narrative that, and if you can prop that up as well, it takes time, but it also helps get the record straight of things that might go through the rumor mill that don't do you any favors. So there's a lot of things to this that are more than just getting out there and chatting it up. You can build toward these other goals.
Another thing is that I think we're going to add, but it would be in this section, you'd be able to build it, is creating a stronger contact list for businesses. So solid emails and phone numbers. And right now, a lot of that is actually happening through Miranda. And so with Miranda announcing her departure, you know, you're going to have another setback in that area. And even with Miranda here, most of those contacts were business owners, not the manager, not the employee. So oftentimes if you're communicating with people, they're not in town and they couldn't participate or come to things anyway. But if you're going into the places, you know, you could even create different programs where people share their information. For example, we've been using, and you used it too, the Carrot app. At our conference, we use this thing called the Carrot app, and it was created to sort of foster interaction in a downtown. And so they create a directory of all of the different businesses, and each business a QR code. And so different people download the app, and you can have a directory of all of the people who have the app. They go into businesses, they scan the QR code, and then you can see who shopped at the most local businesses over the course of a year, and you have a prize or something. So you can reward people for shopping in local places while you're building your contacts, while you're building all of those pieces that you need to really strongly communicate and connect those dots. And so, yeah, we can share that information if you'd like more. They're great. Any questions on those things? I know sometimes they seem really
What is the last time? Could you scroll up?
familiarity tour. Mm-hmm. So that is where you have, you know, you can do this in different ways. You could have a locals night or an employees night or something along those lines, where you invite people and you have kind of a progressive event. So you go to visit different businesses and see what they have for sale or meet each other. You can also do it by having something where each month a different business hosts something and they say, you know, this is why I opened my business. And this is, you know, this is the mission of what I do. And this is the products that I sell. And you can start to see how businesses can cross collab or market together. And you start to understand more of the fabric of like if you were going to do a big fabulous basket of Netherlands stuff, what would be the story? Like, what story is that? What story does your dad tell when you look at all of the products and the services of all of your businesses in your town, right? So you can start to kind of put that together. All right. Okay, so building downtown habits. And I think that it's like there's a lot of work that's kind of been started in this area, but thinking about how to incentivize regular business hours, don't let, is really getting at the idea there's inconsistent, like maybe there's one night where nobody knows if anything's open. If nobody knows if anything's open, then you're probably not going to come downtown. Like what makes people come is knowing that there might be an option. Like if this thing's closed, this will be open. That's why, you know, King Soopers and Safeway are always next to each other. McDonald's or Burger King are always next to each other because, you know, if you don't want one, you want the other, right? Clusters, or it's called the agglomeration effect. But sort of thinking of your downtown in that way. And you want to create the habit where people know, hey, if we do this at this time, there's going to be something fun, something yummy, something to do. And so really thinking about how you can do that. Thinking about not letting perfection interfere with progress. This is going back to that idea of consensus building and just saying, you know what, do a test project, right? We can try something and see how that goes. So for example, when we were in Durango, there's a group that was creating parklets. I don't know if you're familiar with the parklet. Started in Louisville where they put some, I think originally put down some pallets in a parking spot, and then they put some tables there so that they could have more outdoor seating. So they took a spot that was for a car, made it for people. So this company in Durango has expanded the idea of the parklet to the pedlet. So now they have this add-on sidewalk, and it's like a little ramp with a rail, and you can put it up next to a curb. And you can expand your sidewalk and make it as big as you want it to be, right? And so in Durango, they put that out there. They're trying it out. They're looking at, you know, how would it be if our sidewalk was this wide? So you guys as a DDA could do test projects as a part of that research and just see how it goes. So it doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to glean the information from the experiment, right? Do people like it? Is it a happy thing? Rather than taking on things like doing sidewalks in the entire downtown that might be a contentious subject, cost a lot of money, and cause people to fight, you just do a little test, right? And so that can be something that you all take on. And I think it's a really good use of your funds and your time as a DDA to get that information through those test projects. You want to add?
I think, and again, if you have communication of what the needs are throughout the community, especially throughout the business community, then it's easy to figure out, hey, let's just test this, or trying to align with be some grand ideas in that downtown plan. So how do you start proving the market whether those will or won't work? So I think there's lots of opportunities there as well.
Can I comment?
Mhm.
It occurs to me that you're right. We don't have that much communication with the businesses, and they don't show up at our meetings very often. But there's a group out there that has a lot of participation now with the businesses, and we're just starting to tap into the Chamber of Commerce. And we're starting to have a little bit of a conversation with them. And that could be a great place to start to just communicate more with those businesses who are part of the Chamber of Commerce, because they're already self-selecting. They want to be involved in something.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Yep. And back to that original piece with aligning with partners and understanding what they're doing, because it's a way you can really leverage where they are to get where you want to go to.
Yeah, and they don't really identify that many big projects. I mean, their goal isn't the same as ours. Their function isn't what ours is, but they already have a group of businesses that are wanting to get involved in some way. They want to be part of something.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe about that. Yeah. I have, yeah. And I had one, Randall, what was that, about 3 months ago? Where there was, I think, Steve, you were there, and I was there, and 3 or 4 people from the board were there. I've been to a couple of campings too. They're pretty enthusiastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. And that's exactly it. You know, you can't do everything as a small organization, but you can bring together that network and activate that network and support. So even if the chamber is doing things that would service businesses and you wanted to do, you know, a grant to the chamber, those are things that you could support as well, right?
The chamber is going to come to us for a special event grant because they're going to help with the summer concert series. So we are working on, and the meeting that Scott mentioned was just the beginning. So monthly we all meet. So that's been a good connect. We've been working well together.
Mm-hmm. Now, I do just want to say events are always going to be a lot. And I think events also sometimes get mixed reviews. So thinking about is the chamber collecting contacts for businesses? Are they doing that? Is that a goal of yours? Can you share? You know, like think about some of those underlying things because events can go both ways. You know, sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not. But you not to say support or not support their event. I'm just saying events are not what you do when you have low capacity because they take a lot of capacity. Okay.
Because this is part of the summer concert series. They want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Can I just really add, I think the chamber is incredible. And then again, there's kind of smaller meetings about economic development, but the chamber has been very clear that they don't want to get really focused on Netherland. They really are desiring to, go all the way to Lyons, Blackhawk, Central City. And so I think they worry of getting too tied up into Netherland and the business outskirts feeling like it's always about Netherland. And so that's something I know that they're trying to balance really well. And I think they're doing a great job. But it's definitely something that weighs on them when they go into kind of anything they get involved with, really wanting to see that broad support.
They want to work with Time Served because they can be a vendor. Because they have a 501c6.
Yeah, they want to pull the
They want
nonprofit
to do
or
the
the
nonprofit
liquor license.
for us.
And then
They would make money off of that as a fundraiser, being the one to pull the liquor license.
and that's
So
what
she had some other ideas that she might come talk to us about.
she-
The director of the chamber.
Patrice LeBlanc.
All right, we'll talk about this later.
Yeah, it's going to be an item, but I'm just saying,
It's
bringing it up.
I've heard of it.
So that we can continue to build this relationship. And they saw that this would be an opportunity that it's not just about Netherland. It's about, bringing everyone from the peak to peak to come to Netherland to do the summer concert series.
Yeah.
That's it. If the chamber is looking for communities to partner with them, and if we're the first community to step up and do that, that's good.
I agree, and I do think it builds a framework for Central City and Blackhawk and other communities who maybe are not often as apt to do that to kind of jump on board. So I definitely agree.
Great. Okay, cool. So the next one, showing off businesses. There was a lot of discussion. I know y'all just did the signage and wayfinding. There was talk about having more signage specifically on the larger business built the larger commercial building, say, okay, here's who's in this building, or having, kind of a map for it. So even thinking about signage and wayfinding for your private businesses, including the downtown map. There was a lot of talk about somebody's done a downtown map. I think making sure that there is a downtown map, that it is updated regularly, that it includes all of your businesses. This really benefits all of the businesses in the downtown. And I think that is definitely in line with kind of where we saw the role of a DDA. So if there's somebody already doing that, can you make that a contract, and then you maybe, ask them to include it, however you want it done. But thinking about how you really get the word out, having the downtown website that highlights all of those businesses, really thinking about how you communicate what is the content of your downtown, and making sure that that's available, in print, on the ground, on your phone, on your computer, all of the above. So really making that connection so that you can show off what you have. Your whole downtown is stronger when everybody is seen. So, sometimes in some communities, we'll even recommend that as a downtown organization, you could help businesses who can't pay their, like you could pay the chamber a sum so that they could reduce the amount so that all of the businesses within Netherland could be members, just to make sure, that everybody's represented. So, just think about all the different ways that you might be able to do that. Do you have some good examples? I know Longmont's done some amazing stuff. I always think of that one newspaper, where you had like meet the entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I think we've done campaigns that these business owners are your neighbors, your friends. I mean, even their employees if it's not the owners, right? So we did a bunch of photos of people. And then, back when the paper was red, this is years ago, I'm so old now, we put them all in the paper and people really liked that. Actually, that was 10 years ago. And so during Small Business Month, we're going to bring them back during Small Business Month and really show the endurance of those that have been there for 10 years, right? I think it's something to celebrate the small businesses that have endured time because it's super hard to do. And that's where people will start, kind of identifying more. And I just can't really stress enough how great it would be to have a business directory on your website. And, that comes out of conversations. Where that helps a lot is sometimes there's a business owner that doesn't have the wherewithal to have their own website. But by being able to have that on your site, that if someone looks it up or wants to know, we put the hours on there and things like that, they're able to get that information. And then that business owner doesn't have to have their own website. But it's also continuing to get people to your town. So we do that, and it's shocking the number that don't really have websites, and sometimes they'll be our highest hits because people are just trying to find information about them.
We do, and there's a lot of issues with it. Now Peter is working on updating it since we all are pulling from the same areas and so Peter's updating it right now. So that is something, because of all the conversation that we're having, I'm going to have Peter come in June and really talk about all the work that we're doing behind the scenes that has already, Peter was involved in all these conversations. And so a lot of these recommendations we're already kind of working on behind the scenes, and I'll give you an update on that from my perspective, but that is something that we can talk more about. And it was great to have Peter in all these meetings for having both hats on for town and for his contract work with the DDA. So he's hearing what we really need to be doing with the web, and I don't have to, he's coming up with his own ideas. Like it's been a really great process working with him on that.
Great. And we can go to the next slide. So we did hear a lot about accessibility, whether by car or by foot. And clearly this is something that is, another topic that may get contentious at times in the community. In terms of thinking about accessibility, one of the things that we have to think about is, there's the parking inventory, but there's also the parking management, really making sure that people understand where there is parking, what they can use, that sort of thing. So in thinking about that downtown map, creating a parking map, having, there's now these different even online tools where you can, and maybe you're too small for this, but maybe you have a ton of people who come for events and you have a lot of challenges at certain times of the year. But there are actually different apps that you can get that are like, oh, this one's full, go over here. Or, depending on where you're trying to park, they can kind of direct you to the closest place you can park. But thinking about how you really communicate where the opportunities for parking are, making sure that people are aware of what those options are, right? So in many communities, they say they have a parking issue. When you bring out the experts in parking, they'll say, no, you have the appropriate type of turnaround, but you can look at that stuff. These are things that you all can do research on, and you can really come up with a plan. One thing that I think is really interesting is this Placer. I don't know if you've seen Placer, but it uses like the pings from your phone. And it can say, okay, this many people visiting the downtown over this year were new outside visitors. These are return visitors. These are your employees. This is your residents. And you can see what's making the traffic. They also have a thing where instead of getting their ongoing service, you can do a one-time download of data where you can look at like 4 years and you can say, okay, where are our employees parking? Where are our residents parking? Where are our visitors parking? And you can actually see how it's structured. Now, you may need to hire somebody also to analyze their data, but Those are the types of things that I think you can do, and you can just say, okay, this might be a potential solution in the meantime, right? Because maybe this is a conversation that's going to go years and years out into the future and never have a solution, but you can identify things that could be done now. You can identify, you know, what's the actual problem with data behind it, and then you can further those conversations.
If I could just add, one of the things that I think is a little bit difficult to navigate up here is knowing where you can and cannot park, and knowing if this is a lot for a private business or a lot where a public person could park. And so I think if you do create a parking map, or if you do something, having some kind of wayfinding that goes along with that. I mean, we in Longmont had all of these innocuous Ps that you just didn't really notice, and we just replaced them in the past 3 weeks, and people are really starting to understand where those are. But having a network of, I thought I could park here, now I can't, now I have no idea where to go, makes it super hard, especially for visitors or folks like that. So I think if you're looking at parking, that's a huge thing. And I don't know if you've ever invested in an actual parking study where someone is finding out where are people parking, how long are they staying, are they moving, that kind of data. But it's super helpful to understand if you truly do have a parking problem or if it's a perception problem. And seeing how that changes over time is also super helpful.
And maybe I can just add, of course, you all did your parking study, but the multimodal transportation plan is evaluating parking and is doing just that. Is it a parking problem or is it a perception problem?
Right. So as those things come about, you can, you know, do test projects. You can, you know, work on those maps, think about those communications, things like that, you know, should be wins. Of course, sometimes they need tweaking, but but you should be able to get some wins out of those. Also thinking about enhancing walkability. And once again, I think that if you could test things out without making permanent changes and needing, you know, tons of money, you could really find out what people have a stomach for and what really addresses the need for your community. We were suggesting, you know, having a flex street that might be both for cars and pedestrians, and the kind of thinking about some of the ways that they do that. You know, there's also these pedlets that I was talking about, but just trying some stuff out and seeing what the reaction is. Then communication. So we talked a lot about communicating with the businesses and for the businesses. This portion is really thinking about building an awareness of who you are as an organization. And sharing that. So building the awareness of the DDA. I think part of that is just having, you know, one pager or something, you know, that as Kate's going around, she could take stuff out to people, you know, having something very clear that's on the web, maybe on the town's website, having highlighting downtown material in others. So the chamber, you could have something where you share with their board, what is the DDA? Who are we? Why are we here? Do that with the other organizations that are out there. And then also having an annual report. I just think it's important, especially because you do have public dollars, thinking about sharing, you know, what are your goals? And I'm thinking something short, not like a large dissertation that'll be challenging, but something that's like, you know, here's why we exist. Here's what our goals are. Here's what we got done this year. Here's what we might do next year. You know, that sort of thing, something quick and easy. And next slide. And that's it. That's it. So these are really thinking about low-hanging fruit. This is just more information about Downtown Colorado Inc. And as I started off this process by saying, we are a membership organization. You all are our members. And any of you, board, staff, residents, like y'all can call us and you can ask questions. You can ask for more information. We have a lot of different ideas or communities who have done a lot of this stuff, if you want to go talk to other communities, if you want to do a field trip and visit places, or you want to watch a video or or whatever it may be, we're happy to help you. And we're also working with you through the Peak to Peak Byway. So tomorrow we have a meeting and we're going to get to meet the chamber and talk to the other communities that are along the byway. We're going to be looking at how to update your corridor management plan to include a lot of the creative content and look at it as a creative corridor so we can help to bolster that. And I think that that's another opportunity for kind of touching base with the different efforts and initiatives, the different partners that are going here. And so if ever there's any question or you'd like to be connected with someone and we can help, we're here and we will actually physically be here working on that program as well. So thank you. Thank you all for your time, and big thank you to Kimberly for joining us, and for Kate and Miranda for all of their support in getting everything ready. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. As far as access, I didn't notice there was an online resource library. Is there a link for that that's in this, or do we have the link for that?
We can send you the link for that. We do have a new website that went live on Monday, and there will be a paywall. And so you are members, but what you may need to do is make sure that we have your name in our system, and then you can just request a password and log in. But if you'd like to share all of the board members' names, we can put them in. You get 10 sub members for your membership. And so we can put you all in there, and then you can log in and use anything you want. The other thing to keep in mind is that we did just have our In the Game event, which is a 4-day event, but it's worth it. It's worth it. And we have a ton of different DDAs. We have board members, we have staff. Kimberly brought her whole team. We were in Durango a few weeks ago. This year we're going to be in Greeley, so it's a lot easier to get to, and it will be really fun. Greeley has a DDA, and so I know that a lot of you have really appreciated the input from Kimberly. We had a downtown panel, and we had a lot of different DDAs and BIDs who were sharing how they work on things, the different challenges. And so if you all would like to come to that next year, we would love to have you. And so just think, that's one educational opportunity. We actually have them going all year long. So resource library for sure, but also I think the importance of interfacing with your peers and those DDA leaders in other communities will really help you. Does anybody online have any questions?
Well, Kat, I want to thank you very much for all the work and effort that you've done on this project. It brings a lot of clarity to us, and we really desperately need. And I think the board members are going to study it, and I think we'll all benefit greatly from your work. So thank you again.
Well, thank you. Thank you all. We really enjoyed getting to know you all, and we'll look forward to working with you more.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, farewell to you online. Thank you.
There's no more discussion. I think we'll adjourn.